Utah, a barren state mostly covered by desert and beautiful red rock formations. The area and its surroundings are something to marvel at. Utah is home to over 2 million residents, but despite its fast-growing urban population, it still remains one of the least populated states in the U.S. But long ago, this land was home to numerous native tribes, and because of this history of native inhabitants, the land is rich with archaeological sites waiting to be discovered. Near the city of Price and deep in a widespread valley is an area known as Range Creek. This valley was once the site of numerous Fremont Indian villages. Only until recently, the area was off-limits to the general public. Because of its isolation, the 1,000-year-old Fremont Indian artifacts have been left untouched and well-preserved. Some artifacts date back to the time of Christ, and most of them have yet to be found.
Range Creek is a fabulous place that archaeologists have known about in Utah for about 75 years. But about 5 years ago was the first time in about 75 years that any of us have had an opportunity to actually see Range Creek.
The Range Creek project is probably the most spectacular archaeological project I've worked on in terms of the scientific value of sites. Our first session of 8 days, we found 79 previously unrecorded sites that included painted and pecked rock art, pit house villages, and granaries that were perched 50, 100 feet above the canyon floor. And we were just overwhelmed just from the very start.
To archaeologists, Range Creek is a gold mine. But why was it kept from the public for so long? Who owned such a large piece of land rich with artifacts? The answer is this man, Waldo Wilcox.
Dad and Mother and my brother and I went in partners and bought it in 1951. And then after my dad died, my brother and I, we split it up, and I took the canyon and he took the high country.
Wilcox lived in the area for 50 years with his wife and 4 children, raising cattle.
The person asked me how many artifacts or how many things there was in Range Creek where they lived, and I said there was only one. Well, he said, I know better than that, I've seen 3 of them already. And I said, well, there's only one, and it's from one end of the canyon to the other. Government agencies all told me that my cows was going to destroy all the stuff over there, and when I sold it, I told them, okay, there's been cows here for 150 years, look at it and see what's there. I'll give you 5 years, you look at it and see what's there. Then after the people take over, it'll all be destroyed. But if I had kept it until I died, it'd wind up this way anyway.
In 2002, the state of Utah acquired the property from the Wilcox family through a complicated deal, and Range Creek became the property of Utah.
For sites that are still intact, that haven't been vandalized or excavated or had the artifacts removed from the surface, it's probably the best that's left in the western United States.
Here's a hammerstone. See how it's worked along that edge right there? I think a lot of people come here with the expectation they're going to see something like Mesa Verde with lots of cliff dwellings and artifacts just every place, and that's really not the case. Everything's pretty subtle here. If you don't know what you're looking for, you're probably not going to see anything.
It's a very broad valley, and you had to know what you were looking for. Otherwise, you would be bored. And so you had to have a little bit of understanding of archaeology.
A lot has been left unknown about the ancient Fremont culture. Who were these people? How did they live their daily life? Archaeologists ask themselves this question every day. So what have they found out? And what is already known?
The Fremont culture was here about the same time period as the Anasazi were in southeastern Utah, which was a time period from around 300 AD to, I believe the latest figure is possibly 1350 AD.
Most of the Utah tribes, the Shoshone, the Ute, the Paiute and Goshute, claim to be related or descendants of the Fremont people.
And they lived in pit house villages and farmed corn. One of the hallmarks of the Fremont culture is they're very expressive artistically. Their rock art is unrivaled in the world in many ways for its complexity and its mystery. They also made objects of clay and so forth that were very, very artistic. And so the Fremont are known for that.
The Fremont were very good at farming, even in an extremely arid environment.
So they were able to be successful farmers by knowing how to care for their crops. Look around Utah. Farming isn't the first thing that comes to your mind. The first thing that comes to your mind is, my gosh, there's a lot of rock here and it's dry and it's hot. It doesn't seem like a place, well, I think I'll grow corn here. It doesn't seem like a good place to grow corn, and it's not for the most part. It's not a great place.
They farmed maize, they farmed beans, they farmed squash. We also think they were probably collecting the many different types of berries and seeds. And from the rock art panels, we can tell they were actually hunting the bighorn sheep and the deer and the other animals in there as well.
In Range Creek, they also made pretty spectacular granaries, storehouses for their corn, up on the sides of cliffs in places that are sometimes very difficult to see and almost always very difficult to even think about how to get to.
We are climbing into these using professional climbers and gear and search and rescue teams, and they were going up into these granaries without any of that gear, and they were making the climbs. I've actually been measuring the granaries, and on average they'll hold 30 to 50 bushels or basket loads. The Fremont and other Native Americans used very large baskets that hold about 34 liters apiece.
To visit a place where someone 1,000 years ago chipped something on the rock, and to have a personal experience with the past, to really, it centers us in our own present, to know, understanding where someone stood 1,000 years ago and did something.
In 2004, a local newspaper leaked the story about Range Creek and its recent purchase by Utah State. As a result, controversy erupted. Native Americans were furious that the archaeologists had been invited into Range Creek before they knew of it, and demanded they be involved in the decision of Range Creek's future.
You know, when Range Creek first hit the media, there were several groups that were upset about that, especially the tribes, that they were not informed of this development years ago when those discussions were being held and the land was being purchased, and a lot of groups, especially the tribes, were essentially excluded. Some are very concerned about protection of the artifacts, especially the human remains. I guess I could say that all the Utah tribes are concerned about the human remains. Any remains need to be treated respectfully and according to the law.
We haven't disturbed any of the burials in Range Creek. We don't have any plans to. I don't see any reason why the remains that were placed there 1,000 years ago even need to be disturbed.
If human remains need to be excavated, we'll do that in cooperation and consultation with tribal people and follow all applicable laws and practices about seeing that those remains are properly and respectfully cared for.
I think we should really make an effort to both conserve the resources, archaeological and natural, but also to manage them in such a way that the public can enjoy and use them. I know that's an enormous task. I don't know what all the answers are.
I think the archaeologists should be here to study hopefully for generations to come. It would be ideal if this could just be an open living museum. I think that would be fantastic, but I don't know that it's very realistic.
They're not going to be able to contribute to society if they're not protected or removed. If they're exposed, then chances are they're going to be looted.
I think the Indians left that stuff there for a reason, and it was their religion, it was their belief, and I think that us white people ought to respect them, right or wrong, nobody can prove that they're right or that they're wrong, but if that's the way they want it, I think we should leave it. I don't want them hippies digging me up and picking the gold out of my teeth when I die.
I think that the very fact that they were there living in the canyon and that they placed some of these remains there with what's obvious care means that there was an intent for them to remain. So I would hope that they would remain there.
In the future, we need to learn how to be more respectful of one another. And if we're respectful, kind and respectful, then the outcome will be better. Whatever we produce will be successful and beneficial to all.